Bills Mafia. What's going on? Yes, do not adjust your sets. This is Billsology. We're back. Akeem.
Yes,
We're
sir.
back, man. Before we get into all the good stuff, brother, we're back. It's been a long time, but we are back. What's going on, man? Happy Saturday night to you. How you feeling?
Ladies and gentlemen, Akeem Richens, DM3, Dave Myers. Billsology is indeed back, man. It's felt like forever, Dave. It felt like forever. I know we've been grinding at the bits, talking for countless weeks on actually doing the show, and the time is now. The time is here, and I'm blessed, DM3, to be here with you on this Saturday night.
Oh, we have so much to talk about, and yet there hasn't been a ton of football. And training camp starts next week. We had mini camp and all that stuff, but there's a lot of stuff to talk about. We're going to talk about Sean McDermott. We're going to talk about the Bills defense. We're going to talk about 𝐬𝐮𝐬𝐿. We're going to talk about Dalton Kincaid. We're going to talk about Josh Allen, the Bills defense, Brandon Beane, all the acquisitions, Landon Jackson on the PUP, Greg Rousseau, Ed Oliver, Bobby Babich, Joe Brady. Top 10 lists. It's summertime. Top 10 lists are all over the place. So I think we start off with Sean McDermott. How do you feel? I mean, he's the head coach. He's the guy. He's the conductor behind the train. I started talking about lists, and of course, people get enamored with these lists. Bills Mafia gets involved in the clickbait. That's because that's what these lists are, right? They're clickbait. They want you to comment and defend your guy and stuff like that. So I'll let you go on this first because I know you're strong, opinionated about Sean McDermott, like I am. How do you feel about Sean McDermott as the Bills coach overall? Like the 9 years that he's been here, how do you feel about Sean McDermott? Expectations, what he's done, what he hasn't done, all that. I know that's a widely open question, but I'll let you kind of take the reins at this one, and then I'll kind of chime in a little bit here and there as we go.
Sean McDermott, as the Buffalo Bills head coach for this past 7 years, I think he's, uh, you know, been an excellent coach for our Buffalo Bills. Has he won the big one? No, he hasn't won the big one, and I believe he's being slighted from a lot of media components and even Bills fans for not winning the big one, losing to the Kansas City Chiefs 4 times in the playoffs, being a defensive-minded coach. But in those 7 losses in the playoffs, the defense has given up 28 points per game. So I know there is a lot of opportunity there in terms of Sean McDermott mishaps back in the past. But I think Sean McDermott has been great for the Buffalo Bills. We can't use those flaws to discredit the success Sean McDermott has had, right? We didn't know what a winning culture was like prior to Sean McDermott getting here the past 17 years before Sean McDermott came to Buffalo. We didn't know what stability was like at the head coaching position. We had 7 different head coaches and 1 interim head coach during that 17-year drought. That's basically a new head coach every 2.5 years for the Buffalo Bills until Sean McDermott got here. And ever since he's came to the Buffalo Bills, we're talking about a 66% win percentage. He's 41 games over 500, 5 AFC East champions for the Buffalo Bills. Made the playoffs 7 out of 8 years in his tenure with the Bills, and the one year he didn't make the playoffs, it came with some understanding. I wouldn't say it's by design, but it came for some understanding the fact that the Buffalo Bills team didn't have a long-term answer at the quarterback position at the time. So being a head coach and recognizing that and going through the growing pains because of that is why the Buffalo Bills didn't make the playoffs that 1 year out of his 8-year tenure with the Buffalo Bills. But overall, I think Sean McDermott has been tremendous. I think he is exactly what the Buffalo Bills need. And I don't think there's going to be a perfect head coach, but he's been the right head coach for us. Now, he still has to win that big one, right? He's still going to have to prove to the naysayers that, hey, I am not just using a basketball analogy here, Mark Jackson, where I can turn the franchise around. I can be Steve Kerr as well, and not only turn the franchise around, but get him over the top. So that's the weight that he's going to have to get over his shoulders. But I think he's been excellent thus far for the Bills.
So, Sean McDermott conversation is very polarizing because I feel like there's a divide. It's kind of, there's the Sean McDermott is a great coach. Look what he's done for the last, going on his 9th year, the end of the drought, stability, culture, the locker room. We talk about all that stuff, his leadership on and off the field. And then you have the other side of Bills Mafia that says he'll never win the big one. He can't get over the hump. He can't beat the Chiefs. He can't outcoach Andy Reid. He hasn't gotten us there. He's won 13 games and all this other stuff. So I just, you see these lists come out and I tie it to these lists because I don't understand how there are. And now this was by executives and scouts and GMs and other stuff. Is there 11 better head coaches than Sean McDermott in the NFL? Honest question. Take the homer aspect out of it. Is there 11 head coaches better than Sean McDermott in the NFL?
My personal opinion, I obviously not being a homer here, no, not at all. I do not think there are 11 head coaches definitively better than Sean McDermott. And if I run off some of the coaching lists, Andy Reid, right? Obviously, we all know
he should be in his own tier.
Right, exceptional head coach.
Andy Reid tier, period.
Andy Reid. You have Sean McVay, right,
okay,
for the Rams, who I think is a damn good coach. Nick Sirianni has won multiple Super Bowls, and as arrogant and as pompous as he is at times, he has hardware to back him up. So I'm gonna put him in that realm. Kyle Shanahan, Matt LaFleur, John Harbaugh, MCD, Sean McDermott. So I think he's in that realm with Kyle Shanahan and Matt LaFleur and John Harbaugh. Maybe you want to put Sean Payton in the discussion, but I think there could be an argument to be made for Sean McDermott being a top 5 to 8 head coach in this NFL.
I think he's better than Shanahan. I think he's better than LaFleur. Just my personal opinion. Of course, I'm a Bills fan. I'm going to say that, but. Mm-hmm. If there's no, and this is an old take, but there's no reason for the 2017, there's no way that team should have made the playoffs. And I understand the Tyler Boyd reception from Andy Dalton and all that stuff, but they were 9-7 with, that was, Tyrod Taylor, Nate Peterman saga, horrible offensive line, Kelvin Benjamin, they traded Marcel Darius and everybody else. So I don't know. I think we have to look deeper into what McDermott has done. Now, do we get kind of upset sometimes because he doesn't give us anything and he's very standoffish and bullish, and you can basically ask him a plethora of questions and what the answers are going to be. But I think that Sean McDermott has evolved. I really do think that he's evolved year over year. We see more aggressive play calling. We see a lot less in-game management situations that we as fans, and I know Akeem, you and me have spoken on this a lot, things that we would have probably chosen to go the other way. Now, people are always going to harp on 13 seconds and all this other stuff. But if you look at it from a perspective of one head coach wins the Super Bowl every year, one team wins the Super Bowl every year. So to be to a point where I feel like he feels like, and Brandon Beane feels like, and I think ownership feels like they're going to kick the door in. The door is not shut completely. They just need to pry it open and get through it. So talking about Sean McDermott, that's going to kind of lead into a lot of what we're going to talk about, because I feel like what the Bills did, Brandon Beane did this offseason was defensively, right? Since free agency, the draft, on and on and on. So you posed the question when we were putting topics together about the Bills can they be a top 10 defense in 2024? Do you think that the drop off of 23 was because of the new defensive coordinator? It was, we lost Hyde and Poyer were gone. There was a bunch of turnover with, older players. They got younger. Milano was out for a lot of the season. So what do you think? We'll talk about 2024 first. What do you think was the major sticking point to you? Because if you look statistically, it was not great. They could not get off the field on third down. I think they had the most drives they allowed teams to get into the red zone. Now turnovers, they were great in turnovers, and they've been great all of Sean McDermott's tenure. They've been great turning the ball over. So what do you think? Is it the Bobby Babich thing, the new safeties? Like, what was your how would you summarize, I guess, the Bills' 2024 defense and where we can maybe see a shift coming in 2025?
And before I even get into summarizing the 2024 defense for the Buffalo Bills, we have to remember he's a defensive coach, but he is the head coach. He is the overseer for the Buffalo Bills at the end of the day. And I think that some things that is also ignored about Sean McDermott is his ability to sustain success throughout the changes for the Buffalo Bills, right? We saw like this roster overhaul for Sean McDermott and the Buffalo Bills last season, and everybody had other teams like the New York Jets or the Miami Dolphins winning the AFC East. But the Buffalo Bills once again proved everybody wrong, and I think that's a testament to how good of a head coach Sean McDermott is. Changing offensive coordinators in the offseason and in midseason. We've seen both sides of the spectrum for the Buffalo Bills organization, and they was able to sustain success. Changing defensive coordinators, right? Going from Leslie Frazier to coaching the defense up a year now to Bobby Babich, while still able to maintain and sustain the success that he's had. So not only is there are roster turnovers where Sean McDermott is able to remain and keep that winning culture, it's also the coaches behind the closed doors or that work with him on a day-to-day basis, that's been changing as well. But the same constant has been him and his ability to sustain the success that the Buffalo Bills had during his tenure for the Buffalo Bills thus far. Now in 2024, I think it's another testament to Sean McDermott. Now, of course, there are layers and other people involved get praised too, but the Buffalo Bills defense, they wasn't good in 2024. Their run defense wasn't great in 2024. Their third down defense was pretty bad in 2024. They was, I believe, 17th overall in total defense, and that's not what I would call the Buffalo Bills way ever since Sean McDermott came to the Buffalo Bills. But he understood one thing, and that's being a head coach and overseeing the entire spectrum. The Buffalo Bills offense is something that he recognized that had to change a little bit. We had the beef. You've seen what happened with Brian Dable and Sean McDermott a couple of years ago at the end of the Giants game. They barely wanted to speak to each other, right? They had philosophy differences. And the Buffalo Bills and Sean McDermott felt that even though he was a defensive guy, he had an offensive philosophy that he wanted to mimic and he wanted to stick to. He wanted to have an identity running the ball. He wanted to have that identity of being a physical football team up front. And I think recognizing Joe Brady as that guy is something that we have to give Sean McDermott credit. And looking to the 2024 season, while the defense wasn't good, the offense was a big proponent to the Buffalo Bills' success. Scoring a franchise record 525 points, right? Scoring 30 points in 8 straight games, 13 out of 17 games of last season for the Buffalo Bills. So the Buffalo Bills, throughout the 2024 season, they did enough on defense. When you force 32 turnovers, you have an opportunistic defense, and you can get that that offense that scores 30 plus points per game the ball back and to have success. So I think to wrap up the 2024 season defensively for the Buffalo Bills, was it good? No, it wasn't the Buffalo Bills way, but they were opportunistic enough with the turnovers to have success, and their offense propelled their sustainability in success in that 2024 season. And I think that's a testament of Sean McDermott being a head coach and recognizing things that us fans probably aren't talking about as much.
Are you sick of hearing about bend but don't break?
It's tough. It's tough, right? Because you the purpose of the football game and sports period is to score more points than your opponent, and
Right.
the Buffalo Bills have done so. But come the playoffs, yes, I'm definitely sick of that bend but don't break mantra in the playoffs, because when you reach that state where all the teams are good to borderline greats, you're going to have some success, and you're going to have some pushback as a defense. So that bend but don't break is cool in the regular season, but in the defense you want to show some resistance.
Yeah,
In the
I
playoffs,
mean,
excuse me.
a lot of people are talking about, and I understand this coming at this way, because we look at the turnovers from last year, right? And people are like, well, if we head into 2025, can we rely on the turnovers? So if you look at Sean McDermott's history with the Buffalo Bills and even with the Carolina Panthers and even back to the Philadelphia Eagles, yes, Sean McDermott's defenses create turnovers. We talk about habits, right? We talk about, you know, doing things that you're good at, right? Practice, practice, practice. And you can tell that that's a sense of urgency when it comes to Sean McDermott. His teams, no matter what 11 are back there, they consistently get turnovers, whether it's Levi Wallace, EJ Gaines, Kevin Johnson, AJ Klein, all these guys that don't belong starting for a championship caliber team. All these guys come in and everybody just feeds off these turnovers. So I think that is sustainable. To me, looking back at 2024, I think that there was just a lot of stuff happening. There was a lot, like you said, there was a lot of moving parts. It was Bobby Babich was finally calling all of the defense. You know, he's been positional coaches his whole tenure with the Bills, but he was in charge of the whole thing. There was a ton of guys that left. We had Poyer and Hyde gone, Milano being out. I just feel like there wasn't enough beef up front. There wasn't a sense of urgency from the defensive ends. So perfect segue into what Brandon Beane has said for 3 months now. There's nothing wrong with the offense. There was something wrong with the defense. So we addressed it. We went out and signed free agents. We went out and drafted players. And I think that a couple things that we need to, I think, be ready for is that there may be an adjustment period here with all of these new moving parts, right? So I'll open it with this, and then we'll kind of go through the list of guys that they brought in as far as the draft and free agency. How confident right now, it's July 19th, training camps in 4 days. How comfortable are you with not just the moves that they made, but the direction that Brandon Beane pounded the table, put his fist down and said, I need to get better. I signed Von Miller to a 6-year, $120 million contract. That didn't work. I drafted edge defenders. I've drafted this, that, and the third to try to help. Do you feel more confident right now heading into 25, looking at the defense and seeing where they're at and where they can get to? I mean, what's your confidence level? I guess I'll state it that way.
It's a lot of roster change for the Buffalo Bills, especially on that defensive side of the ball. I think that as far as a confidence level, because I have the confidence in my coaching staff and the ability to coach players up, I'm at about an 8 right now in terms of confidence, how I feel with the Buffalo Bills defense. They made a concerted effort to try to upgrade their defensive front, right? And I think that I applaud the effort that I seen. Now, was it perfect? Are there still some question marks? Possibly linebacker. Are there some question marks possibly at the safety position? Possibly. But I like that they found a weak link in the Buffalo Bills in the 2024 season, where that was rushing the passer, whether that was stopping a run or being more physical up front. And Brandon Beane told a story through his transactions, right? You know what? Let's go ahead. We wasn't a great run defensive team last year. Let's go ahead and get a guy in Michael Hoyt, sign him to a 3-year contract, and see if we can be better in our run fits. And when you look at Michael Hoyt and his resume, what does he excel in? He excels in run defense. Let's go ahead and try to get more of a pass rush, collapse the pocket, rush the passer. What did he do? He went and signed Larry Ogunjobi, who's a better schematic fit in a 4-3 defense as opposed to a 3-4 defense he was playing in Pittsburgh. And now he can possibly showcase his ability to get to and rush the passer and collapse the pocket. Then let's go ahead and sign a Joey Bosa, even though he's oft injured. When he's right, when he's healthy, he can be one of the premier pass rushers in this league. So let's get him with our training staff and our staff to see if we can get his body right and healthy for him to do so. And going ahead and compounding on that in the NFL draft, when you go ahead and get guys like a TJ Sanders and a Deion Walker and a Landon Jackson, I think the Buffalo Bills are saying, hey, my job, Brandon Beane, as a general manager, I'm going to do the best job I can do to get the players in the building, because I don't think we had the players necessary to compete on a high level on defense in the building last year. But once I do it this year, now it's going to be up to you, Bobby Babich. You know, I think his leash is a little tighter this year. I think a little pressure is on Bobby Babich this year because of the players Brandon Beane got. Now it's going to be up to you to put these guys in the proper positions to execute plays on defense and get better. So ultimately, I think the Buffalo Bills do have the players in place, but it's going to take time because it's an overhaul that we foresee as of right now on the defensive side of the ball.
Yeah, if you look at the front end of the Bills' schedule heading into the bye week, which is week 7, obviously we have the suspensions, right? Larry Ogunjobi, Michael Hoyt out 6 games. If you look at that, besides the Ravens game, I feel, and you could pick that game, you know, it's the first game of the season. They're always odd. Teams are just still trying to adjust. And, you know, the way preseason goes now, where a lot of the starters don't play much at all in the preseason. So week 1 against the Ravens, yes, it will be a test. But if you ask me, if you played this Ravens team in week 1, it's not going to be the same game as it would be in week 15, 16, 17, or the postseason. Teams are completely different at that point. So, but the first 6 games I feel like it's very manageable. Obviously the whole schedule is very manageable. The Bills are favored in all 17 games, but I feel like you get a good period, talking about your point of like trying to bring people up to speed and stuff like that. You get a good period of time to get these guys on the defensive line, you know, involved in the rotation, see who can do what. One point I wanted to talk about too with this is the cornerback 2 position. How do you feel about the cornerback 2? And then we're going to go back to the defensive line because I do want to talk about that. How do you feel about the cornerback 2 position? Because the Bills brought back Trey Wright. They brought back Dane Jackson. Obviously, they drafted Maxwell Hairston. They drafted Dorian Strong, Jordan Hancock. How do you feel about that position heading into camp?
I feel good about the position heading into camp. You want to have some quality depth at that position. I think the Dane Jackson and Tre'Davious White brings that quality depth. I believe they have an understanding of how they want to play on that defensive side of the ball. So I think that the camaraderie that they had playing with the Buffalo Bills in the past is definitely going to help and possibly speed up the process of ultimately the young player we do want to see at the cornerback too in Maxwell Harrison. I think he's definitely got a good sounding board having those guys like a Dane Jackson and Tre'Davious White with the Buffalo Bills because they have an understanding how that defense should look and how that defense should be played. So ultimately, in the perfect world, would we want our first round selection starting for the Buffalo Bills at CB2 come day one? Absolutely. But I believe Brandon Beane and that staff did an excellent job uh, uh, bringing in guys so they don't have to rush his process in Maxwell Harrison. And if he is struggling, don't keep him out there. Take a step back. Hey, see how these guys do it. See how it's supposed to be ran through these guys. Don't lose any confidence, and then come back if you are having struggles and perform from there. So I like the depth, and I like the fact that the Buffalo Bills addressed hopefully the future cornerback 2 position in getting that guy in the first round.
Let me ask you this: who starts Week 1 at CB2?
I believe it's going to be Tre'Davious White.
I agree with you. What if it's Dorian Strong?
And listen, iron sharpens iron sharpens iron, right? And
Right.
it shouldn't be surprising if that do happen. Yes, will we be surprised? Yes, but it shouldn't be surprising because history usually repeats itself. You know, Teron Johnson is a 4th round pick. Our newly extended 4 years, $76 million guy, Christian Benford, is a 6th round pick.
Right.
So we have guys that come to flourish that's been drafted in the late rounds. So if Jordan Hancock or Dorian Strong picks up that mantle and keeps that tradition going, it wouldn't be surprising as well because of the history the Buffalo Bills have in getting those guys already.
I just feel like Bills Mafia is going to lose their mind if it's Dorian Strong. Here we go again. Because honestly, I think that Maxwell Harrison is a guy that Brandon Beane and Sean McDermott, more specifically, have been looking for on that defensive side. A guy who's twitchy. He's just fast as fast can be. A guy who can make up a lot of mental mistakes with his physical abilities. I think that's something that Sean McDermott has been waiting for 8-9 years. All right, let's talk about the defensive line. Do you think the Bills did enough with the defensive line, with the moves that they made, free agency with Joey Bosa, Michael Hoyt? Because Joey Bosa was a little bit later into the free agency period. Larry 𝐬𝐿𝐫𝐿, which a lot of people, I've seen mixed reactions on Larry 𝐬𝐿𝐫𝐿. Like you mentioned, he was kind of playing out of place in a 3-4 with Pittsburgh. And then obviously the Bills drafted TJ Sanders, who I love. And when he was drafted, and I'll bring this up later, but when he was drafted, there's a reason why they jumped as far as they did to get him. And I'll give you my take on him in a minute. Landon Jackson, Deon Walker. So how do you feel? So Deon Walker, I feel like, is going to be a project. Landon Jackson, I feel like, is going to be a project. He's really raw. And I think TJ Sanders is a guy that he's plug and play. I feel like he can come and make an impact. So first question is, do you feel like the Bills needed to get a true one technique defensive tackle in a Sean McDermott system? And do you feel like the 3 guys I named and the 3 guys they signed, that they've made significant strides on the defensive line? What's your take on those two things?
And once again, those are excellent questions for the Buffalo Bills, especially those 3 guys. In my opinion, one of those guys is gonna have to make an immediate impact for the Buffalo Bills if we have aspirations in terms of it being an upgraded roster group or constructed group in the 2025 season. Like you said, those guys, Deon Walker, Landon Jackson, those guys, it may take some time to develop. It may take some time to see their maximum potential. So I think that the idea was was to have guys before the suspension of Larry Ogunjobi, of course, before the suspension of Michael Hoyt, of course. I think the idea was to have those guys, along with the Ed Oliver, along with the Daquan Jones, along with Gregory Rousseau, take up the brunt of the snaps on defense, and then mix those guys in flashes and let them get their feet wet while not being the main focal point or having to be that guy that so early. But with the injuries, I believe with the injuries to now, obviously Landon Jackson, we don't know the significance of his injury landing on the pup, but we have the two suspensions in Hoyt and Ogunjobi. Now some guys, the second year player Dwayne Carter, some guys are going to have to step up in terms of making an immediate impact for the Buffalo Bills to see, okay, this 2025 roster thus far is obviously better than the 2024 roster, and I think again, it's going to take time. I think the suspensions do hurt, and because of that, it's going to be too early to say. In my opinion, right now, it's going to be too early to say. Training camp is going to have to come around, and we're going to see if any of those guys can separate themselves from the pack, because we're going to need at least a guy or two to do so with the suspensions we have looming.
It's a good comment from Daniel. I was literally just saying, like, I don't know necessarily right now if we got better, but I know that we got a lot younger. And I don't think that youth movement has stopped. I would not be shocked if Daquan Jones is not on the roster heading into regular season. Just because I think age, the injury from last year, I don't feel like, he's come back to that guy that he was after that injury. And unfortunately, once you get to be 33, 34, that's what happens. So let's talk about the edge defenders for a second. And I'm gonna leave Greg Rousseau off this because we're gonna talk about him in depth here in a little bit. So of these guys that I'm gonna name, which one do you feel like might be on the hot seat because the Bills made these moves, right? We got Landon Jackson, Joey Bosa, Michael Hoyt can do just about everything. Okay, so Javon Solomon, AJ Epinesa, Eddie Ulofoshio, which I guess he's technically a linebacker. Of those guys, do you feel like there's going to be a struggle for one of those guys to find a spot on the roster? And if so, which guy is it, do you think? We'll leave Ulofoshio out because he's technically a linebacker. So Javon Solomon, AJ Epinesa.
I think it's going to have to be it's going to be iron sharpens iron with those guys. I think both those guys could be expendable. Javon Solomon, he's a late round draft pick. He's not going to affect the Buffalo Bills in any way if he's cut. AJ Epinesa signed a 2-year, $12 million contract for the Buffalo Bills, so he has an annual salary of about $6 million. So if he gets cut, can the Buffalo Bills possibly get some cap relief because of that? Possibly so. So if it's close, then he may be the guy that is on the outside looking in. Because in my opinion, if you're not separating yourself drastically on the football field, and then we have to look at your financials, I think, we have to definitely look at AJ Epinesa. How much better is he than, a Landon Jackson or Dwayne Carter or even a Javon Solomon at this point of his career? So I think AJ Epinesa is definitely one of those guys you have to look at and say, okay, what you're going to bring this offseason? Because training camp rolls around. If these guys are playing just as good as you, or you're playing just slightly better than these guys, I think that puts you on the hook.
Yeah, I think if the 6-game suspensions wouldn't have happened, I'm not sure AJ Epinesa is on the roster heading into week 1, just because there's just so much playing. There's only so much playing time, and there's this roster. There's so many guys. It's deep. And then that's when you start talking about the Daquan Jones and AJ Epinesa and Javon Solomon. I haven't given up on Javon Solomon yet. There was flashes last year. It was very small sample size, but I haven't given up on him. And I don't think that Brandon Beane and Sean McDermott have either. AJ Epinesa, we know what his ceiling is. It's 6 sacks, right? Over a 17-game season. That seems to be what he does. And it seemed like there was times last year where he wasn't on the field in important situations. And that's kind of like a tell, right? Like the guys that you're going to have out there in the third down passing situations when you want somebody to go get the quarterback, he wasn't on the field. Mm-hmm. So I feel like his path might be secure until the guys come back from suspension. Then there's the bye week, week 7, and then week 8, we'll see what happens, with Hoyt and Ogunjobi being back up to speed, because we're just talking about overall defensive line. So you brought up Dwayne Carter, which is very interesting. Do you think Dwayne Carter can play one tech? Because if you look at who the Bills have with TJ Sanders, who I love, and I even said, and this is a crazy take, and everybody in our group chat was like, you're nuts. I feel like TJ Sanders might have been drafted to be Ed Oliver's eventual replacement, because I don't feel like he could probably play one tech if they really need him to, but he's a 3 tech guy that he can create pressure. What's your thought on this whole one tech? I mean, you kind of touched on it, but I said this during the drafting process when everybody was upset. Why are they drafting another 3 tech? Like, what's going on? Ogunjobi, can he be a 1 tech, or he's a 3 tech? Dwayne Carter's a 3 tech. Ed Oliver's a 3 tech. Like, what are we doing with the 1 tech? We have 57-year-old Daquan Jones. So my thought process was they just want guys that can win their one-on-ones, right? Now, I know Brandon Beane has come out and he said, we do want to find that true 1 tech that can be that placeholder and have that next to Ed. But what's your thought on, do the Bills need to have a true 1 tech for this defensive line to just do what they need to do? Or are they okay with having guys like Dwayne Carter size-wise, TJ Sanders size-wise, that can still come in and win their one-on-one battles and create pressure, help in the run, support, stuff like that? What's your thoughts?
I believe us as fans looked at the 1 tech in high importance when we are looking at body structure, right? I think we were stuck as fans on the body composite of what a 1 tech defensive tackle should look like. He should be 6'3", he should be 320 or 330 plus pounds, and he should be able to take on double teams so our linebackers and our 3 tech defensive tackle can make plays. And when the Buffalo Bills told their story by the transactions that they made, I believe that us as fans looked at that body composite to a bigger importance than the Buffalo Bills staff. And I think you're right. I think the Buffalo Bills, they just want guys that can win their matchup in front of them, can win their one-on-one matchup. And if that is a guy that is 294 pounds and he fits the bill and he can play football and we can maximize his potential, so be it. If this guy is 330 pounds and he can fit the bill in whatever else we want done or we look into as a defensive tackle, so be it. So I don't think the Buffalo Bills kept themselves stuck into a weight and body player composite when looking at the one tech defensive tackle. I think they was just looking at how good can this player be now for us and in the future. And I believe they base their selections on, can we maximize the talents of these football players? And they like to stay ahead of the curve as well. This NFL is not like 10 years ago. Yes, it would be nice to have a Vita Vea in the middle because we see that success on other teams at times, but we have to look at the overall evolution of the game of the NFL and what is transcendent to. And I think the Buffalo Bills just want guys that's quick, strong enough to maintain that pocket, light on the feet, and to win their one-on-one matchups, whether that's 330 pounds or 290 pounds.
And then they overcompensated and they drafted Deanne Walker. Who's like a mountain. He's like a mountain of a man. So hopefully Deanne Walker, a lot of people that said that what they've seen from him in person, like standing on the field, he's just a massive unit. Like he's just a large guy. So, all right.
He's another guy, right? But he's another guy
project
we talk about, and he's probably 340 pounds, but
I think he's bigger than that.
And he's light on his feet.
Yeah.
He's light and he's quick on his feet. He's a pretty damn good athlete for a man
Right.
his size. And of course, he has to profound his game, right? But I think he has some tools there. He has to get that back right, but I think he has some
Yeah.
tools there.
All right. So then I'll ask you this. We talked about cornerback position.
Mhm.
We talked about the defensive line. We talked about the edge defenders, which was included with the defensive line.
Mhm.
Let's talk about safety. Are you concerned with the safety position with the Buffalo Bills?
With the safety position for the Buffalo Bills, there are some concerns there. Absolutely. There are some concerns there with the safeties, especially knowing Sean McDermott's defense and how crucial the safeties play their roles in his defense. So, one concern is Taylor Rapp. I like Taylor Rapp. I like his ability, but can he stay on the field? Can he stay healthy? And that's been some concerns ever since Taylor Rapp has come to the Buffalo Bills. Now he started 14 games last year, which was great, but I know he had some bumps and bruises along the way. So can Taylor Rapp stay healthy? Cole Bishop is another guy that I think we believe in drafting and developing and progressing our talent. And part of the reason why I feel the Buffalo Bills didn't go out and get another safety is because they believe in themselves and their vision to develop players. And they also believe in Cole Beasley and what he's able to do in his athletic profile. So I think the safety position is contingent on Taylor Rapp staying healthy and how much Cole Beasley progresses from year
Bishop.
one. Cole Beasley, Beasley. Cole Bishop
Don't set the
progresses.
chat off. Don't set the chat off talking about Cole Beasley.
Cole Bishop
Ah.
progresses right from year one to year two. I think we all know, we have an idea what DeMar Hamlin is. We all know what his ceiling is, and I think he would be a damn good role player, third safety for the Buffalo Bills. But we need Taylor Rapp healthy, and we need Cole Bishop to take that leap in progression from year one to year two.
This is not a shot at DeMar Hamlin, but I do not want to see DeMar Hamlin starting a game at safety for the Buffalo Bills. And that's not a knock on DeMar Hamlin. He has been everything that the Bills could have asked him to be as a depth player. He knows the system. When asked upon to play in small doses, fine, it happens. But like last year, we did a show last year, and we both said that we thought DeMar Hamlin was going to start because of how far behind the 8 ball Cole Bishop was because of his injury in training camp. It's not that I don't have confidence in McDermott and the DB's coaches to coach up Bishop and Rapp. It's just that I don't like what I saw last year for most of the season. Say what you want about the injuries and Cole Bishop missing time. I just feel like we were so fortunate to have Micah Hyde and Jordan Poyer for so long that I think most fans didn't even think about the safety position until we had to think about the safety position because we knew those guys were getting older and they were going to have to move on. And then obviously Jordan Poyer moved on before last year. Micah Hyde suffered that injury. He was on the practice squad last year. He didn't even play at all last year. And I think watching Cole Bishop in college, I think the Bills liked a lot of his intangibles, a lot of his raw ability, his physicality, and his just natural instincts to be around the ball, whether they use him in a nickel package or they want him to be that third linebacker on the field, whatever it was that he was doing in college. I think they thought that would translate. And then the injury happened, and now he missed some time again in camp, and he's got to get as many reps as possible. I'm just concerned with the health of Taylor Rapp, the experience of Cole Bishop, and then we just have – we got Derek Forrest, who's started in this league. So maybe he's someone who's going to push both of those guys. And if he needs to play, maybe I feel a little more comfortable about him playing instead of DeMar Hamlin. But I think that's something that we should watch through camp and see how that progresses and how Cole Bishop progresses. Because we know that Taylor Rapp's going to be there. We know that he's going to make plays. We also know that he throws himself around like a crash test dummy, and he doesn't have any care about for his body. He's an old school safety who's going to go and try to get big hits. He's going to jump on a lot of things that you're like, whoa, where'd he come from? There's a reason why he was wearing a Guardian cap last year. It's like, so a little concerning there. I think that's something we need to watch. We didn't talk about linebackers. So
what does he do best? What does he? Is he a box safety? I think he played box safety 157 snaps. I think he played free safety 162 snaps. What does 𝐃𝐨𝐧'𝐭 excel at best?
Bishop.
Bishop. I keep saying Beasley.
That's
Bishop.
It. You're out of here. That's it. It's over.
Bishop.
We don't know what he does. I would have thought, okay, maybe he doesn't miss camp, and maybe last year. And maybe we see him doing some exotic packages, right? Maybe we still see Damar Hamlin, the Bills roll with 3 safeties, like, when they bring Cam Lewis in and he's like that third safety. Maybe we still see, Cole Bishop doing what they had envisioned him doing, but he was so far behind. You saw the Houston game, right? When he just got beat, and, the DBs were, the corners were like, bro, like, that's your guy. And then towards the end of the year, you could see it started to click a little bit where they weren't overly concerned with where he was. It didn't seem like. I don't know. That's a good question. Like, what is Taylor Rapp? Taylor Rapp is a guy who seems to get interceptions that fall in his lap. Not saying he doesn't make plays and doesn't support the run and things like that, but if you look at the interceptions that he makes, it's like overthrows, or it's like quarterbacks and the wide receiver are not on the same page, and he just happens to be there. Now, you got to be in the right spot to make the play, but I'm not overly thrilled with either of those guys, because I feel like Taylor Rapp is on the injury report almost every week. So then we got to start thinking about Damar Hamlin. Then we got to start thinking about Derek Forrest, and we got to start thinking about longevity heading into the postseason, which the Bills have not been able to stay healthy defensively in the postseason at all under Sean McDermott. And I'm not saying that's a knock on Sean McDermott, but it seems like every year someone is injured in the postseason. Christian Benford last year, we had to watch 𝐼𝐸 Elam falling all over himself trying to cover Chiefs, wide receivers. So I don't know. That's probably not what you asked me, but I just went on a rant for a little bit there. So it's been a while. It's been a while for us. So
it has.
All right. So we didn't talk about linebackers. We could touch on it a little bit. How do you feel about the Shaq Thompson signing, by the way? Is that just a camp thing, or do you think he's got a shot at making the 53?
He's been injured the last several seasons. How much does he have left in the tank? What Shaq Thompson are the Buffalo Bills getting? Can he stay healthy? Did the injuries diminish his talents and what he did well as a Carolina Panther? So I think he's more of a wait and see. I think the Buffalo Bills are always trying to find that diamond in the rough to see what certain guys have left, and I think that's what Shaq Thompson is. He's a case where we have to see, okay, can he stay healthy? And what does he have left now that he's healthy? So I think that's more of a wait and see thing. And hopefully he can provide a presence and a spark for the Buffalo Bills, and hopefully provide some depth in that linebacking core.
All right, so a little bit of housekeeping here. If you guys are still with us and have been with us since the beginning of the show, thank you. Appreciate you guys spending a Saturday night with us. Akeem and myself, we are back. Billsology, we will be here for the very foreseeable future, obviously all of 2025 and beyond. If you could do 3 things for me. If you could smash the like button wherever you're watching this. If you're watching on YouTube, please subscribe. We are going to spend a ton of assets and resources and time on YouTube trying to get this algorithm figured out. And then please drop comments. We love seeing the comments. I love when the chat's blowing up. You guys interact with each other, interact with us, ask questions, have comments. Tell us, your thoughts on what we're discussing. I appreciate all of that. So if we could do that, that would be great. All right. Matt Milano, you concerned with Matt Milano? What's your thoughts on him?
I'm not concerned with Matt Milano. I'm excited to see what he has left. This is not the Buffalo Bills a couple of years ago, where if Matt Milano goes down, we don't have no idea who's going to take his spot and how well they would do in his replacement. I think Dorian Williams is a guy heading into his third year that proved that he probably can't make as much splash plays as a healthy Matt Milano can make, but he can definitely hold the fort and hold his own at the position. I think coming into double digits for last season, Dorian Williams was a top leader in tackles in the NFL. So he is more than capable of holding it down if something happens to Matt Milano. But he restructured his contract. The Buffalo Bills did this offseason. I'm pretty sure he understands the magnitude of this season for him, and not just for the Buffalo Bills, but in his career as well. If this is the last season for Matt Milano in a Buffalo Bills uniform, can he prove to other teams that he can go and make an impact? So I think this is a big individual year for Matt Milano, health-wise, showing what he has left and showing the Buffalo Bills franchise glimpses and hopeful glimpses of what we had in the past with Matt Milano. So I'm excited to see what he brings to the table with the 2025 Buffalo Bills.
I'm going to put a comment up from Roy Collins, and then, excuse me, and then I'll talk about Matt Milano. Akeem, are we going to do a 53-man roster projection?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Yes, of course, Roy. So, look, we've tried to come back for like 4 years. This is it. We are here for the long haul, whether it's a year, 2 years, 5 years. Billsology, Akeem and myself, we are here. We are the co-founders of Built in Buffalo. We need to be on as much as possible. We're here. So, yes, at some point, probably, I would say close to maybe preseason-ish time around there. Give us about a month from now. But, yes, we're going to do that. Now, Matt Milano, I think this is his last year in Buffalo. And I don't say that because I don't like Matt Milano. I think everybody's a Matt Milano stan. We love what this guy has brought to this team. We love the explosiveness of just watching him attack the football. We love having him on this roster, knowing that he's just a freak athlete. Now, is he maybe a little bit past that? I don't know. We'll see. I like what I saw in the postseason. He made some good plays against the Ravens. He made some good plays against the Chiefs. He's had an entire offseason routine to get back to Matt Milano. Do I think he's going to be 2019, 2020, 21 Matt Milano? Probably not. But I think 75% of that, I think is good enough. I think it's really good. I think what we know what we're going to get out of Terrell Bernard. I think he's a perennial Pro Bowler. I think he's a guy that unexpectedly makes plays when you don't he makes plays when you don't expect it. Like the punch out that he had against the Ravens. Seems to be all over the field. And I like that combination. And you brought up Dorian Williams, and it's a lot of Bills coaches are on record as, when asked who they thought the most athletic player on the roster was the last couple of years, it's Dorian Williams. Now, we need to get that physicality and the mental side of it. We need to have that all be on the same page. We saw some signs, some flashes of what he can do last year when Milano was out, but then we also saw them bring back a probably 60% Matt Milano and took snaps away from 100% healthy Dorian Williams. So I think he's got things to work on in pass coverage. I think he needs to work on the pre-snap stuff and then the post-snap stuff, and he bites on a lot of stuff that Matt Milano just doesn't, and Terrell Bernard just doesn't. Like the stuff that those guys are able to do with reading plays and anticipation for where to hit the holes and stuff like that in the run game and stuff like that. I feel like that's something that Dorian Williams will have to work on going forward. All right. So we talked about all the acquisitions. We talked about all the draft picks. We talked about possible roster bubble guys, who needs to work on what. Did the Bills and Brandon Beane do enough, Akeem? Did they do enough? Did Brandon Beane do enough to get past the Ravens, the Bengals, the Chiefs? Did he do enough on this defense to improve it year over year from 24?
We hope so. right? We hope Brandon Beane did enough. We hope that he did enough on the defensive side of the ball. We hope he did enough to the overall team where they can compete at the high level and hopefully stay healthy through the process. I know health has been a problem for the Buffalo Bills in the past. So right now to definitely say, hey, Brandon Beane, I'm gonna go ahead and put a stamp on it that he definitely did enough. We have to see where will the Buffalo Bills land in the tiers of teams this season. And I think we're at a point where the playoffs is not good enough. Playoffs is something that is an afterthought now for us fans. It's like playoffs. We're going to make we don't even think about
Playoffs?
not making the playoffs anymore, right? AFC Championship last year. I think we're at a point where, as fans and as an organization, I think Sean McDermott and Brandon Beane will probably even tell you themselves that it's time to hoist the Lombardi Trophy. And if we're not on that level of hoisting that Lombardi Trophy, how much of a successful season is this? Right. So I think at the stage that we are in our tenure in our careers, watching this Buffalo Bills unit under Sean McDermott and Brandon Beane, it's hard to say it's enough until we get to the place we want to go, if that does make sense. But
Yeah.
just looking from a background lens, I like some improvements that I've seen. I like the improvement to the defensive line. I like what we did in terms of improving the defensive line, the defensive front seven, in hopes to stopping the run, in hopes to get into the pass rusher, a bigger, athletic, younger youth movement. So I like those components that we had done this off season. Did we do enough at the safety position? Did we do enough at the wide receiver position? Did we go so deep into the defensive front that we kind of ignored those elements of the phases that we had success last year in, but doesn't mean that last year is going to translate into this season's success? Right. So those things are going to have to be remain to wait and see what happens with the Buffalo Bills, especially at the safety and the wide receiver position.
All right, so we had these two guys categorized as our own topics, but I'm going to lump them together.
Mm-hmm.
Greg Rousseau.
Mm-hmm.
Is there another switch that he's going to hit, or do we know what his ceiling is? We just paid the guy handsomely. We gave him a lot of money, which defensive ends are not cheap.
Mm-hmm.
So my question to you is there another switch? Have we seen – now he's only 25, all right? I've seen that. Oh, he's young, he's so young. That's what the Bills like to say. Brandon Beane and Sean McDermott, I don't want to say it's an excuse, but it's like, oh, he's young. He's still young. He's 25.
Mm-hmm.
He's played 4 years. He gets 8 sacks every year.
Mm-hmm.
So is that his ceiling, or do you think there's another level to Greg Rousseau? And then we'll talk about Ed Oliver here in a second.
I think that this is the season where we're going to see how much potential Gregory Rousseau has, right? Because yes, he is 25 years old, but he's been in the league 4 years, and some people progress early, some people progress right on time, and some people progress late, and some people don't even progress at all. And I think last season, Gregory Rousseau had 9 sacks. I believe he has 28 sacks on his career, 4 years. That's about 7 sacks a season. I think Gregory Rousseau has shown thus far in his 4 years that he's a good player. He's a solid player. He can do everything rather well, rather solid. He's a complete, solid football player. But is he a guy that can be a game changer? Can he make those game-changing plays? Can he take it up to a next level? And I think this is the last year, in my opinion, where we're going to see where Gregory Rousseau is in his tiers. Is he just a solid, complete player, or can he be a game-changing, difference-maker kind of player? And that's what we're going to find out this season. But right now, his floor is he's a good player. He's a solid player.
Comment from Lance. Pressure rate is there, just needs to show up more in sacks. So you remember a guy named Jerry Hughes?
Mm-hmm.
He's the Bills and he doesn't even play for Sean McDermott anymore. He has the most pressures in the postseason of any Bill that played for Sean McDermott. and he hasn't played here in how many years? Jerry Hughes was a guy that was the almost get a sack guy. And that's what I'm concerned with what Greg Rousseau is. He's phenomenal in the run game because of his wingspan. He's able to shed blocks or shed linemen and be impactful in the run game. I love that about him. I look at Jerry Hughes and all those pressures that he always got, and it didn't amount to the other guys getting sacks. It was just you rushed a quarterback, you rushed to play, you rushed to pass to almost get to the quarterback. And I feel like the 9 sacks, the 8 sacks, Rousseau, he had 3 or 4 sacks in the first game of the season. So we're saying he had 5 or 6 sacks the rest of the year. If that's what $20 million a year gets you, I guess. I'm waiting for that next level. I'm waiting for him to have a 12, 13, 14 sack season where he takes over games, where it's the fourth quarter and it's the Chiefs and you need someone to go make a play on defense. And is Greg Rousseau that guy? Because we don't want to admit it, but Von Miller was that guy in the beginning. When he first got here, Von Miller was that guy. Now, it didn't end the way we wanted it to because of the injuries and whatnot, but we haven't had that guy since the first 10 games of the 23 season or 22 season with Von Miller. We haven't had that guy. So I'm going to tie these things together, and then I'm going to have a follow-up question. So Ed Oliver, what's your thoughts on Ed Oliver? Because he got paid 2 years ago, had a really good season 2 years ago. I think he had 9.5 sacks, and then last year kind of back down to earth. So what's your thoughts on Ed Oliver? Is he a top 15 defensive tackle in the NFL?
If Ed Oliver is a top 15 defensive tackle in the NFL, he's closer to 10 to 15 than he is to 1 to 10. I speak about, Gregory Rousseau, and if he has another tier or if he can be that guy on defense. There's only 2 players, in my opinion, on the Buffalo Bills currently that can be that guy, and one of them is Gregory Rousseau. Whether we're going to see if he can be that guy this season or if he's just going to be a good player for the Bills. And in my opinion, another guy that can be that guy is Terrell Bernard. So those 2 players I see is like, okay, do we have game-changing kind of players on this Buffalo Bills defense? Those are the 2 players that stand out to me as possibilities of being that guy. Ed Oliver, I think he's past that ship. I think that ship of thinking that Ed Oliver can be that guy, can be that game wrecker, can be that Chris Jones kind of player that can take over a game or can make a game-changing play. I think that's past Ed Oliver, and I don't look for him to be that guy to do so anymore. If he does do it, great. That'll be great. But I think at this point, I've been watching Ed Oliver a number of years now. I think he is a solid to good defensive tackle, not a great defensive tackle, and not a guy that we can depend on to take over games. If he does it, fine, great, cherry on top. But at this point in my career, watching Ed Oliver, I think he's a good defensive tackle for the Bills that's in that 12 to 15 range.
So I see a lot of comments coming across about, well, he needs a solid 1 tech or someone playing next to him. Does he? Does he have to have a solid 1 tech or a solid defensive tackle playing next to him to be effective? Maybe, but you also need to have a lot of other stuff to have happen to have the defense work the way it should. The defensive ends, the linebacker. I mean, I'm not a guy who is going to go to bat for Ed Oliver, and I don't think that he's bad. I don't think that he's below average. I think he's a good defensive tackle. So I asked you, though, about both of those players to ask you this. Do the Bills have from 1 to 10, top 10 players on the Bills, however you want to rank them after Josh Allen? Can that stack up against how many teams in the NFL? Because I think 11 through 53, they're really good. From 11 to 53, I think they're really good as far as quality starters, quality depth. Overall, 11 to 53, they're really good. It's the 1 to 10 that is the problem. Who's the other guys? Who's the alphas from 1 to 10? And it's a serious question because we talk about how Brandon Beane has built this roster. We talk about how it's constantly feel like defensively is the issue in the postseason. Is that a Brandon Beane issue or is that a Sean McDermott issue? So if we're talking about if it's a Brandon Beane issue, look at 1 to 10. Who are those guys that you would take your top 10 from the Bills and put them up against a top 10 from any other team and think that the Bills would come out on top? Because that's the case for Josh Allen being MVP last year. That's right there. How many guys – because, again, as I started the show, it's list season because people need to put content out. All these publications need to create lists, and these executives and scouts and GMs and coaches every offseason get together and rank the quarterbacks and the receivers and the linemen and the DBs and the defensive linemen and all this stuff. And you're not going to see Bills on any of those lists because from 1 to 10, they're good. Like Ed Oliver is probably a Bills top 10 player. But is Ed Oliver a top 20, top 15 NFL defensive tackle? Greg Rousseau is probably a top 10 Bills player. But is Greg Rousseau a top 20 edge defender in the NFL? Christian Benford. We just saw the list came out. Now, I don't agree with it, but he wasn't even an honorable mention. But he's one of the Bills' 10 best players. Deion Dawkins was number 8 on this list. He's one of the Bills' 10 best players. James Cook was the 89th player in the NFL Top 100. He's one of the Bills' 10 best players, but he's 89th, which is he's probably 7th or 8th on the running back. You see where I'm going with this? I know I kind of went long there, but that's where I think the Bills struggle to make deep runs in the playoffs, and it ultimately shows on the defensive side in the postseason. They don't have Chris Jones. Now, he's a unicorn. Obviously, there's not a lot of Chris Jones, but like I started this whole topic, like who is that guy when it's the AFC Championship game, whether it's the Chiefs, the Ravens, the Bengals, whoever, who's going to go make that play? We hope that Joey Bosa is going to be healthy and can be that guy. We hope that Landon Jackson eventually turns into that. We hope that Gregory Rousseau takes another step and he turns into that. I don't know, man.
And you know what it is as well. I think it's a combination, right? And I say combination where it comes with coaching and players. And when you combine that, now I think that's where teams separate themselves. And the Buffalo Bills is fine. Like you said, 11 through 53. In terms of overall depth, I think the Buffalo Bills are one of the best rosters in terms of depth in the NFL. And this is why when the Buffalo Bills have their rash of injuries like they had in the past, they don't miss a beat because they have guys that follow that mantra in terms of next man up. They have quality depth on their football team. But now in the playoffs, and crunch time, and you're playing these upper echelon teams and upper echelon coaches, and you have your best players against their best players. Now it's become coaching. And I think that has been an issue for the Buffalo Bills in playoff losses. Now we can compare the 10 best players of teams, and the Buffalo Bills might not be as strong top 10 as other teams, but in those games, they are in every one of those games. And now it's up to the coaches.
Hold on. Why is that, though? Is it because of Josh Allen? Is it coaching? It's
a combination. I think it's a combination. I think you have to take just like you have to take in the past before Josh Allen only committed and the Buffalo Bills only committed 8 turnovers as a team. Before that happened, I think the mantra was with Josh Allen is you have to take the good with the bad, right? Sure. And I think that is can be said with the Buffalo Bills coaching staff as well. You have to take the good with the bad. They can coach these players up, and the Buffalo Bills have a lot of these no-name guys or no-name players or not household names, and they're winning these games that the rest of the NFL and the media pundits last year didn't think we would win and didn't think we would get to. But now that we're here, we're one play away here and one play away there. And I think that's where the coaching aspect struggles. They're not, you have to be flawless with the players you have going up against these players. For example, Philadelphia Eagles. That means our coaching, we have to be almost perfect. And I think the coaching and the liability we have at times executing plays because of the coaching staff is also a reason the Buffalo Bills aren't hoisting up a Lombardi trophy right now. I don't think the Buffalo Bills had the greatest roster last year, but I definitely think that if we was more multiple in our sets in terms of red zone offense and not trying to sneak with Josh Allen every time, who knows what could have happened in that game against the Chiefs if we was a little less predictable. Who knows what would have happened a couple of years ago when we had 13 seconds against the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, overall, was the rosters as good as other teams? Probably not, but we got there. And now it's up to the coaches to continue to propel us to get over the top like they've done all season. And I think that's where they stumbled a little bit and hit that block as a coaching staff. So this year is another year, and we'll see what happens.
Again, that our initial point was that we started the show with was Sean McDermott.
Mm-hmm.
So is that Sean McDermott? Obviously, he's got assistant coaches and coordinators and all that stuff. So it's going to be interesting to see because I that's been a hot topic. A lot of people have been talking about is the lack of star power on the Bills. Now, some people say, well, it's the sum of all the parts, right? Which is a team. It's a team sport. It's the sum of all the parts. Mm-hmm. But when you get to one-on-one, your team versus my team for all the marbles, do I have enough guys that can beat your guys? Mm-hmm. And I feel like what you just said about 13 seconds, if Sean McDermott had the utmost faith in his guys to be just as good as Andy Reid's guys, he wouldn't have played those 13 seconds the way he did. My guys are going to be coached up. We've run this through practice, this scenario. We know what to do. I'm a defensive-minded head coach. I'm a defensive guru. My guys are going to line up against your guys. You go beat me. And he didn't do that. And that, obviously, that was a few years ago, so we've moved on. Most of us have moved on, hopefully. Mm-hmm. And I think that's why I said I think McDermott has evolved. He's learned, and yes, he's going into year 9, but I feel like he takes steps every year. Mm-hmm. So would I like more star power on this team? Yes, but I also understand the salary cap is real. I also understand that we need to recycle some of these positions. Matt Milano's getting older. We lost – Trey, we had to move on from Trey last year. We drafted that position. We had to move on from Micah Hyde and Jordan Poyer, so we had to get younger there. So I get all that. Mm-hmm. So let me ask you this, and then we'll move from defense to offense. Mm-hmm. Who has the most to prove on the defensive side of the ball this year for the Bills to be successful? Anyone on the defensive side of the ball?
And that's, I believe that's an excellent question. Player that has the most to prove on the defensive side of the ball.
I didn't say player.
Okay. I'm glad you went there. It's Bobby Babich.
Yep, 100%.
It's Bobby Babich because the Buffalo Bills were right, wrong, or indifferent. They made a concerted effort to revamp and improve that defense. So he's going to have to come out and execute. He was in his first year, rookie coach calling plays. I think they gave him a little bit of leeway, a little bit of slack, and said, "Hey, you know what? It's your first year. I don't think we had the players in place last year to execute exactly what you wanted to do. I'm not giving you a pass, but your leash isn't going to be as tight last year as it is this year." And I think they made that effort to get a defensive front seven. They made that effort to get quality depth guys at the cornerback position. And I think Bobby Babich, it's all eyes on him now. He's going to have to play better defense, execute better. He's going to have to be better against the run. Gave up 4.6 yards on average per play last year. I think that was bottom half of the league. gave up a first down on third down on over 45% of his plays. I think that was bottom half of the league. So they're going to have to improve defensively, and I think it's going to start with Bobby Babich.
I couldn't have said it any better. I agree with you 100%. I had his name circled here in Sharpie, like just ready to roll, because he's been with McDermott since McDermott's been here. He was he was the safeties coach. He was the cornerbacks coach. He was the linebackers coach. So now he's got the whole thing, right? So he's the proverbial start, I guess, of the McDermott tree, if that's going to be a thing. So we got to see what happens. I feel like last year, like we discussed earlier, there was a lot of factors that may have been holding him back, as far as the turnover in the secondary, as far as Matt Milano being out. Defensive line rotation wasn't great. We were signing, Quentin Jefferson and Jordan Phillips again, and it didn't seem like that ever worked out. And we didn't get really anything from Vaughn. We got pressures from Vaughn, but he was only on the field 30% of the time. So I think there will be no excuses for Sean McDermott, number one, because he's the defensive guy, and then Bobby Babich. I think bringing 𝐬𝐮𝐬𝐜𝐫𝐿 in as a defensive line guy, I think that is going to be huge. We've seen a lot of stuff come out of the brief training camp that they had, the mandatory camp that they had, where he's putting in these exotic pressure packages, getting more linebackers involved in pressures, which we're not really used to. We see linebackers and safeties and corners blitz every now and then, but it feels like the Bills are trying to find ways, and maybe it was just because they didn't have the personnel, and maybe now they feel like they have the personnel to do more exotic things. But again, I talked about Sean McDermott evolving as a coach. This is another thing. How many assistant coaches does he have now? He's brought a lot more sets of eyes in to kind of give him, information or what they're seeing and help experience and stuff like that. So that's really nice to see from Sean McDermott, that he's evolving and taking, because he's stubborn. We all know Sean McDermott's stubborn, but I feel like he's loosening the reins a little bit, and he's willing to take advice or ideas from other guys. So let's move over to offense. You want to talk about James Cook now, or you want to wait? You want to just get it out of the way now?
Yeah, we could do that. Let's do that.
Okay, so everybody's talked about James Cook the last 3-4 months until they're all blue in the face. We haven't had a chance to talk about it on this platform together. So I feel like it's worth a few minutes of discussion. Everybody knows Hard Knocks shows up next week when the Bills start training camp. I think the first episode comes out August 7th, I think. And James Cook is going to be a story. It just is. I don't foresee anything getting done between now and training camp when it starts, so they'll have some film on it. My perspective is I don't think a deal is getting done. I'm not saying I agree with that. When Brandon Beane gave his stance a few months ago about we're going to talk about it next offseason, I feel like Brandon Beane doesn't go back on his word a lot. And I think if you look at the financial aspect of where the Bills are at, I just don't think that it's something that's a pressing issue. I think they feel like James Cook showed up to mandatory camp. He participated. He got in front of the media. He spoke about where he's at, the contract situation, why he was there. And I think he'll show up to training camp next week, and I think he'll play the entire season out on the last year of his expiring contract. I feel like he needs to be in camp next week, or else he's going to possibly forfeit a bunch of money. And I think it's not a good look going into the season and what his potential contract situation could be after 2025. So that's my take on it. Now, I have a weird spin on this, because if you watch the AFC Championship game, besides Josh Allen, Akeem, I'm going to ask you this real quick. Who else made plays in that game on offense for the Bills?
The man, James Cook.
James Cook, right? So why would you not want to continue that? I understand how the Bills feel about running backs. I understand how the Bills look at the position and how they've historically, Brandon Beane has historically just recycled the position over and over from Singletary to Zach Moss, James Cook, and even to Ray Davis, right? I understand that. But this is different to me. James Cook is a different running back than from what they've had. Why wouldn't it be okay to give a guy on your biggest stage yet to date perform that touchdown? I don't know another running back that scores that touchdown. I honestly, that was unreal. That's probably, and he scored 2 touchdowns in that game.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, I feel like James Cook isn't just another Bills running back. Everybody's talking about, well, Ray Davis can just do that. I don't think he can. I don't.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that Ray Davis has the breakaway speed that James Cook has. I just don't think that he's got the stop and go ability that James Cook has. Can Ray Davis be a serviceable back in this offense? Yes. But I'll end my thoughts on this, and then I'll get your perspective, Rich. I think James Cook isn't just another Bills back. I think he's the 16 touchdowns. He's probably not going to duplicate. If he does, awesome. If he gets you double digits, awesome. But I feel like he's a playmaker, and I feel like you need to surround Josh Allen with as many playmakers as possible. And he's proven 1,000 yards 2 years in a row. He averages almost 5 yards a carry. He produced for you in the postseason when we've been waiting for just somebody, a receiver, a tight end, a running back to produce in the postseason. So I think you don't give him $15 million, I don't think, but I think you try hard to give him an extension, which helps you probably a little bit with his $5 million this year. You give him a bonus, you push some money into the next few years, give him a 3-year deal. That way you got him for 4 years, and then after that, maybe it's time to move on. But I don't know. I think you surround Josh with playmakers. We all have talked about wide receivers till we're all blue in the face and what they did, what they didn't, what they added, what they didn't add, all that stuff. And I go back to watching Stephon Diggs drop passes in big games. I go back to the Kincaid drop. I go back to trying to figure out what you traded a 3rd-round pick for Amari Cooper for whenever you weren't going to use him at all against the Chiefs. Like, James Cook made plays, and he will continue to make plays because he's that good. And that's my stance. What's your thoughts on the whole James Cook thing? I want 10 minutes longer than I was supposed to.
I love James Cook. I love his game. He went from a guy that we were saying a couple of years ago, can he run between the tackles, right? And then now last year he was one of the league leaders, if not the league leader in touchdowns with 16. James Cook is explosive. He has good hands. He can run between the tackles, and he has breakaway speed. So I don't want to discredit anything from James Cook, but I will say, that I would love to extend. I would love the Buffalo Bills to try to extend a James Cook. I think he deserves a contract extension. If he is adamant on getting $15 million, then that is the problem for for the Buffalo Bills perspective, and I can understand that being a problem, from a franchise perspective. I would love James Cook, $11 million, maybe even, maybe 12 million. Maybe we could work some things in where he can get incentives and he can make a certain amount. But if he's adamant to cut and he's not coming off that $15 million per year quota, then I have some pushback, because I do think it's hard to get talented football players at any position. But if you can get talented football players, if you do your due diligence enough, you can get and find talented football players at the running back position. You can find guys that can catch the ball out the backfield. You can find guys that can run between the tackles. Now, of course, the great play that James Cook made, I cannot take that away from him. And I would love him back for the Buffalo Bills. But I think, just like you said earlier in the show, the salary cap is real. And given a running back $15 million per year, and while I think he is a top 10 running back, I don't think he's Derrick Henry. I don't think he's Saquon Barkley. I don't think he's one of those guys to give $15 million a year to call a spade a spade. So I think this is where me and you may have some disagreements here. I love James Cook, but I love James Cook at a certain number. Like Bradley Bill was a horrible number for the Phoenix Suns, getting paid $50 million or $30 million, or whatever he was getting paid. It was a horrible fit. But Bradley Bill at $3 million for the Clippers is a lovely move.
That's money,
it's an excellent move, and that's how I kind of feel about James Cook.
Good. I love it. Let's move on. I'm sure that Hard Knocks is going to be all over this stuff if nothing's done by next week, which I don't anticipate anything being done. Lots of stories about what he wants, what the Bills offered. It's all over the place. So, it could be a Tremaine Edmonds situation. And I said before Tremaine Edmonds last season, go earn that big contract, which means you're going to play it. You're going to have a hell of a season, but we ain't going to pay you. But if it helps us win games, go right ahead. Nice knowing you for 5 years. See you later. I mean, it sounds terrible, but I think we lose sight of the business side of football a lot because when you're paying Josh Allen what you're paying Josh Allen, we have to skimp on something, right? We can't just pay everybody, what they want. We just can't do that, unfortunately. So they just paid a whole bunch of guys. They extended a bunch of guys, and he wasn't one of them. It's unfortunate, but if his stance is what his stance is, he's got his brother's agent. His brother held out. We all know how that went down for him. So we'll see what happens, but we'll find out on Hard Knocks. I guess maybe get some inside information on some stuff. All right, let's talk about Joe Brady, and let's talk about the fact that what the Bills did last season was historic as far as the franchise went. They scored more points than they've ever scored. They averaged 30 points a game. They had the fewest amount of turnovers, in the NFL at 8. Josh Allen was only sacked 14 times, which I believe if you take the 14 and the 8, it's the fewest amount of negative plays an offense has had since like the 1930s. So the Bills' ridiculous control of the ball on offense, ridiculous, efficient machine on offense. So everybody's question is, can they replicate that heading into 25? Can Josh Allen only throw 6 interceptions and have 2 fumbles? He was the only guy that turned the ball over in 2024. Is that sustainable? And Akeem, this is a question that you posed, so I'll ask you. Is it sustainable for the Bills to be as efficient, high-powered of an offense heading into 25 with basically just swapping out 2 receivers for 2 receivers and everything else is the same? What's your thoughts?
Those numbers is remarkable that the Buffalo Bills had. The turnovers, the league low in sacks, those are numbers where you say no, and you look at it on a piece of paper, it's like, nah, there's no way. You did this last year, there's no way you're going to be able to do this again. But is it possible? Absolutely. I think it's possible. And I think it's possible because of Joe Brady's identity and how he likes to protect the ball and how he calls plays on offense. He's a guy that he's going to have an identity of running the football. He's going to run the football, and then he's going to make plays in terms of play calls that's going to be high percentage plays, so to speak. He's going to call those screen passes to running backs. He's going to call those short plays to get the ball in his receiver's hands, so the receiver can make the play and have that yak yardage. So because of how he designs his offense, I absolutely think it's possible. I don't think it's going to be to the degree of, as the turnovers that they did last year, or maybe even the sacks that they did last year. But I think they can replicate some things. I do expect to see possibly a little higher in sacks and higher in turnovers, and that's because of expectations that I have for Joe Brady. I expect he's only 35 years old himself. Coming our age, your age, he's still wet behind the ears, So I do think he can get better and find ways to get better. And a couple of ways that he can be better is being less predictable and being more multiple. right? I spoke about that earlier in the show. You know, the Josh Allen sneak didn't work last year the first time, the second time, the third time. Okay. The fourth time, the fifth time, the sixth time. We have to switch it up
We
now.
get it.
You know, let's be more multiple. They stop this. They're keen on this. Let's have another play and devise another play where we can be successful. And I'm looking for Joe Brady to be multiple there. And I'm also looking for the Buffalo Bills to pass the ball down the field more. I'm looking for more of a downfield presence for the Buffalo Bills. Now, a lot of people would say, hey, if, you know, Amari Cooper didn't slip or if they made a certain block, then that third down screen on 3rd and 10 with the AFC Championship on the line and a trip to win the Super Bowl, they would have made that play. But I say, hey, maybe we can call and structure some plays to go down the field so we don't even have to put ourselves in the position to hope that we get that first down. So I'm hoping that in ways of elevating Joe Brady's game as a play caller is he's being more multiple and he has a better scheme going down the field. And we're talking about players being young. He's a young coach, and I expect him to be better as a coach as he gets further along in his career. So I'm hoping Joe Brady can do that. And if he do that, it may be a turnover or two more because he's getting more explosive plays down the field. But overall, in the essence, I do believe that the Buffalo Bills can replicate being safe and protecting the football like they did in 2024.
You know why I think Bills fans are so enamored with wanting a number one receiver, and they're kind of like, oh, this everyone eats stuff. It's great. It's boring. Mm-hmm. It's because there's no exciting Josh Allen deep balls. There's no gunslinger stuff. Like the Bills, like I just said, the Bills offense can be boring. It's control clock, death by 50 paper cuts, touchdown. Or once in a while, James Cook would break a big play. Once in a while, you know, Shakir would take a screen 50 yards or a crossing route 50 yards. I feel like that's why the Bills and Brandon Beane looked at the wide receiver position and they're like, we'll take a flyer on, you know, Elijah Moore. Like, he's fast. Maybe he can get some downfield stuff. Like, they went for Keon Coleman, who we were sold on the fact that if we throw the ball in his area, he's going to be physical and big body some guys and catch the ball. It doesn't need to be downfield. It can just be wherever we want it to be. Red zone, wherever it's important, right? Which we saw a little bit of that, right? The game against Seattle, he had that alley-oop. The last game against the Jets where Josh ran for 25 seconds and then just threw it to the middle of the end zone. He jumped up and caught it. That's not a deep downfield threat, right? Dalton Kincaid, not a wide receiver, but he's a target. He's a pass catcher. He's supposed to be that possession guy, right? Not a downfield threat, not a deep guy. And I also think that was a product of Ken Dorsey. That was supposed to be a guy to fit into Ken Dorsey's system, and now he's kind of in Joe Brady's system. So we need to think about that, and we'll talk about Dalton Kincaid here in a little bit. So they have Khalil Shakir, who's a slot guy, one of the best slot receivers in the game. They have Curtis Samuel, who is not a deep threat, can be, but he's not known for that. He's known for being line up in the backfield, line up in the slot, can do a little bit of some underneath stuff, get him in space. So then they go and get Joshua Palmer. Is Joshua Palmer a deep threat, a deep threat? Is he a guy that's going to burn past you and he's going to run 4.3 speed and he's just going to blow past guys? No, he's a guy who has great footwork off the line of scrimmage and creates separation. So Bills fans are enamored with this everyone eats stuff, and they don't like it because it's boring. It's why I brought up, can the Bills replicate the 6 interceptions from Josh? And I think they can, because I think it's going to be more of the same. And Josh Allen, we saw, likes things to be, he's more of a visual quarterback. He likes plays to progress and see where guys are going and kind of lead them to places. He's not an anticipatory thrower. He's never been that. That's why early on that the completion percentage and accuracy was an issue, because that's not who he is. He's an off-script quarterback. He's okay, I can see where Elijah Moore is going. I'm going to hit him when he gets to this point because I have the physical capabilities to extend the play and get it there. You know what I'm saying? Like, we don't have Stephon Diggs anymore where he can just 5-7 step drop and just launch it down the field. We don't have Emmanuel Sanders or what Gabe Davis was supposed to be, 5, 6, 7, 8 step drop and throw it to where a spot where he's going to be. That's not who Josh Allen is. And I think that's why fans get upset because we're not going to see, I don't think, the 4,500 passing yards and the 45 passing touchdowns. I feel like it's going to be more of the same. Hover around 4,000 yards, 28 to 32 passing touchdowns, a bunch of rushing touchdowns, efficient football, run the ball 45% of the time, and that fit to 50%, and that's who we're going to be. So I think we can duplicate that. So,
and it's hard. Well, first of all, you're now in tune to Billsology. Appreciate everybody for tuning in. We have 413 people in the chat. We have 13 likes. So if you are watching out of those 413 people and didn't like Billsology yet, what are you waiting for? Please give us a like, give us a follow, subscribe if you haven't done so already. But Joe Brady, you know, it's hard, in my opinion. It's like, what do you want as a fan? If we're going to come, now I have some things that I would want to see improved, yes, but how are you going to argue as a fan when Brady have so much backing that we can go off of from a positive standpoint? Joe Brady is the main reason why Josh Allen won MVP last year. We're calling a spade. This guy was supposed to be a turnover machine where every media outlet that wasn't a Buffalo Bills fan would go and talk negatively about Josh Allen. They would go and revert to those turnovers. Well, Joe Brady is a main proponent into why those turnovers have stopped. And he's now an MVP. We talk about James Cook all the time, especially this whole offseason and deserving a contract extension and paying him $15 million. And he's being one of the best running backs in the game. We didn't know that James Cook was one of the best running backs in the game until Joe Brady came to town and utilized and maximized the talents that James Cook does have as a runner and as a pass catcher. We didn't know that 𝐃𝐨𝐽 would be that guy in the slot for the Buffalo Bills until Joe Brady took over as the offensive coordinator for the Bills. And now we see the talent, the yak, the catch and run player that 𝐃𝐨𝐽 is. And Joe Brady's scheme is a main proponent of that. So as much as we may not like something, because nobody's going to be perfect, every fan base is going to have something negative to say about their head coach or their offensive coordinator or their defensive coordinator. That's just how the world works. There's no such thing as perfection. But in terms of success and what the Buffalo Bills are successful offensively doing this past year, Joe Brady is a main proponent of that success. So how much we have to argue about? We hope that at worst Joe Brady can remain status quo, because that was pretty damn good. 13 games out of 17 games over 30 plus points, 8 straight games over 30 plus points. But we hope that he can elevate the Buffalo Bills at the same time. And if he does do that, well, shit, Joe Brady's going to be a head coach somewhere else in 2026.
Yeah, I don't anticipate him being back for 26, which that's a whole nother conversation that's I don't even want to think about having right now. My thing is, we'll move on to wide receivers, and that's probably going to be it because we're hitting an hour and 40
minutes. Yep.
Everybody's talking about on all the whether it's WGR or some of these brand podcasts or it's messaging on X or whatever, they're talking about target share for the wide receivers, because however you want to list them, you got Khalil Shakir, Curtis Samuel, Keon Coleman, Joshua Palmer, and Elijah Moore. If I said to you, Akeem, and this will be kind of rapid fire, if I said Keon Coleman's going to have 3 receptions a game next season, would you take that? Every game, it's just 3 receptions to Keon Coleman. Now, I'm not talking about where the yards are going to be and touchdowns. I'm just saying target 3 receptions. He catches 3 passes every game.
3 passes every game. That's 17 games. That's 51 receptions on the season.
Is that okay? Would you be okay with that for Keon Coleman?
I would be okay with that for Keon Coleman. Yes.
Okay. 3 passes caught by �𝐾𝐲 every game. Probably would want more than that, right?
Absolutely.
Shakir's on a different tier for us, right?
Absolutely.
3 receptions for Joshua Palmer every game. 51 receptions for Joshua Palmer.
If we're going by this everybody eats mantra and everybody
do you see where I'm going with this?
If everybody's indeed eating, I would not have a problem with those numbers. If it's like this and not enough people are eating, but 𝐾𝐿 Coleman has those 3 receptions, then I'm a little skeptic. I'm like, I'm not sure if that's enough.
So we're calling, I don't know what we want to call them, but the Bills have 5 receivers and then they have Dalton Kincaid, right?
Mm-hmm.
If all 6 of those guys catch just 3 passes a game, that's 18 completions for Allen, right? Probably for a couple hundred, maybe 250, 275, depending on. I don't understand why that's a problem. I don't understand why we got to have one guy that's getting 12, 13 targets and 10 receptions. If it equals yards, first downs, points, and wins, I don't care. I don't know why everybody is so enamored with why we have to have a true number 1. I see a lot of it in the chat talking about I'd rather have Diggs production. Fine, have Diggs production, but that means other guys aren't getting open or they're not getting targets. And what this does is it gives more options when you get to the postseason because you don't have to focus on Diggs. You don't have to focus on Gabe Davis. This gives you more options.
So I will say this as a rebuttal, right? Another basketball analogy here is like everything is different come the regular season and the playoffs. Now the regular season, that everybody eats mantra, it could be great. It could be great. It could work out. But in basketball in the playoffs, everything tightens up, right? Same thing with football. Everything tightens up in the playoffs. Everything it takes to a higher spectrum in terms of the play. And when it's 3rd and 9 in that crucial situation in the playoffs in the AFC Championship in the divisional round, and we know that the Buffalo Bills want to go to Shakir, I'm going to do everything I got to do as a defensive coordinator, as a defensive team, to take their best player, Shakir, out this magnitude. You're not getting the first down on 3rd and 9. Dalton Kincaid, you're not getting the first down on 3rd and 9. Somebody else is going to have to beat us. Do the Buffalo Bills have that somebody else to beat them?
They don't, but they also did, and he didn't do it. Right? Did Diggs do anything in the postseason for the Bills? Ever? And this is the guy who had 100 receptions 4 years in a row, 150 plus targets 4 years in a row, set Bills franchise records for receptions for a 4-game stretch and touchdowns. In the postseason, he did nothing. And the Bills invested a huge amount of money in him. Say what you want about all the I'm just talking on field. I don't want to bring up the off the field stuff and the locker room stuff and whatever. Mm-hmm. Gabe Davis, fine. He wasn't a 1st or 2nd round pick. Cool. He was to be that number 2 to Stephon Diggs. Mm-hmm. And the only reason why he caught all those touchdowns is because they were focusing on Diggs. Fine. He had a 4-touchdown game against the Chiefs. Everybody wanted to make a statue of him. After that, he did nothing. He dropped passes when he was wide ass open. I don't know. Like, I see your point. Like, who's gonna take over a game, right? Who can Josh go to take over a game because nothing's working? It's the 4th quarter. There's 2 minutes left. We need a drive, and everybody wants to talk about the drop by Kincaid. That play the ball should have never even gotten off. That was a miracle that Josh got that pass off. So you could talk better about Spagnuolo and his defense than about the Bills in that crappy offensive play call. Mm-hmm. I don't like the whole we need to have a wide receiver that is going to make a play because we've had him and he didn't make plays.
So I'll ask you, did the Buffalo Bills bring Joshua Palmer in to be that guy? They paid him a decent amount of money. Now, he's supposed to be that man beater. He's supposed to be that separator. Is he that guy they look to like, okay, You covering Shakir, you �𝐸𝐿𝐮𝐬𝐜. We got Joshua Palmer over here. Now, to me, he's more like, who is this guy, right? Because Justin Herbert, according to everybody else, is a top 10 quarterback in this NFL. And Joshua Palmer, I'm looking at his stats last season, over a little over 500 yards, 2 touchdowns. He wasn't spectacular. He wasn't spectacular throughout his four-year career. And they're supposed to have an elite quarterback over there in Justin Herbert. So what is that? Are we saying something about Herbert here? Was it the offense? Is Joshua Palmer that guy? Could he be that guy? And he just wasn't in the right scheme and opportunity to be that guy with the Chargers? What's your thoughts on him?
I think he's a yardage eater. I think he's that guy that you can get 2-3 receptions of 20-plus yards a game because he gets the separation. I don't think he doesn't have the speed to just throw the ball downfield and he's going to get it. He does have some big plays, but a lot of wide receivers have a lot of big plays. I just feel like if you go back and watch film or look at highlights, he just seems to have a couple big plays here and there. Like he's kind of like what Gabe Davis was, but he gets better separation and has better hands. Does that make sense? Like I don't think he was brought in to be that just we need a big play, let's throw it to Joshua Palmer. I think he's going to be consistent. He doesn't drop the ball. He gets open and he makes catches. He's not going to be a guy like Keon who's going to outmuscle guys. He's not going to be a guy that he's going to blow past guys. He's just a guy that catches some nice 20, 30-yard passes. He gets open. But after he catches the ball, I don't see a lot after that. He's not Shakir, who you can't tackle. He's not a yak guy. He's just a possession downfield target. Does that make sense? Like he's not – there were games, and I saw in the chat saying just because we got burned once doesn't mean we shouldn't go back to it. That's not my point. My point is there were games with Diggs when it was like, where's Diggs? And then all of a sudden, oh, there he is, 3 or 4 passes in a row on a drive. He took over the drive. But the way that now this could change if Joe Brady leaves. That's why I don't want to talk about it because it's a whole different can of worms that we'd open up and a rabbit hole we'd go down. But I think Joe Brady's offense is all about just control. We all complained about the behind the line of scrimmage throws, right? We all got pissed off about just throw the ball past the line of scrimmage because it's the law of averages tells you that it's going to be a negative play because your guy is on an island out there and has to beat 1 or 2 guys to make a play and get positive yards. I think Joe Brady's whole thought philosophy is I'm going to give easy throws for Josh. I'm going to give him things that he can complete. If he needs to be off schedule, that's when Josh can be Josh. And we know that you're going to get 7 to 8 of those a game with Josh because protection is going to break down. Guys might not get open depending on the scheme, whatever the defense is doing. But I think Joe Brady wants this control. I think that's why Brandon Beane's like, all right, we'll get a guy that can go downfield, but we're going to get an Elijah Moore who's a smaller back that can create space and get open underneath and do things. We have Khalil Shakir. Keon Coleman can be a huge red zone asset to this team. We have Dalton Kincaid who can be, a guy underneath. Now, if Joe Brady leaves, the philosophy is going to change, obviously, because you're not going to hire an offensive coordinator based on your personnel. You're going to try to give the personnel that best suits what the coordinator's doing. So I don't know. It's just I don't think the Bills want that true number one. I feel like their philosophy is what worked last year. Brandon Beane went on WGR and said we scored 30 points. I don't need to draft a wide receiver in the first round. You guys need to get over this whole obsession with wide receiver. We're gonna do it again. So I don't know.
Absolutely. If everybody does their job right as wide receivers, I think they as a whole they can be successful. If Keon Coleman, he's going to have to come in and show that, I know a lot of people talked about the video that he brought, the workout video. A lot of people had their own personal opinions and comments about his footwork and whether it was fast or whether it's slow and his ability to separate.
But that's not who he is.
That's not who he is. Do his job. If he can do his job,
box out defenders when the ball comes and play that 50-50 and take on kind of a Mac Hollins role, be that dirty worker and make those key blocks coming from the wide receiver position, I think he can have success. Joshua Palmer is a man beater, a separator. If he does that, he can have success. I think Elijah Moore could be an X factor for the Buffalo Bills. I always liked him coming out of college. I love his speed, his quickness. I think that's a weapon that Josh Allen can utilize if Joe Brady understands how to utilize him. And I think they was trying to figure out last year, and I think they figured it out, especially in the playoffs, that Curtis Samuel's a player, and we can draw up some plays for him and get the ball in his hands, and he can have success as well. So I think if everybody do their job and what they do best as an individual wide receiver, I think it'll work out best for the whole group for the Buffalo Bills.
Three things there I think a lot of Bills fans are hoping for. One, 𝐾𝐿 shows to be the guy he was before he got injured, because I feel like he was on pace to have a really nice rookie season. Dalton Kincaid is a lot more like rookie Dalton Kincaid than the injured Dalton Kincaid we saw last year, who, for whatever reason, him and Josh just couldn't get on the same page with the deeper routes. Because if you look at Kincaid's yards, targets per route run and yards per route run, he was at the top. Like, I think it's just they need to work on him, and Josh just need to work on, all of that. We didn't even talk about Dawson Knox, a guy who all he did last year when he was asked to made some nice catches and some nice plays. So the three things: we need 𝐾𝐿 to take a step. We need Dalton Kincaid to take another step. Year 3 is when tight ends typically do. And I think we need to have a healthy Curtis Samuel. I think that held back some stuff that Joe Brady wanted to do, because you remember before last season started, he said, I wish I could have 11 Curtis Samuels on offense. Like, it'd be great. Like, we would be able to do so much. So I think it's going to take time, and I think we have to have modest expectations for the players too. The pass catchers, we're not going to have a guy with 75, 85, 95 receptions. I mean, Shakir will probably get that because that's who he is, but we're not going to have. We can't have everybody exceed all of our expectations and just have this massive passing attack with Josh going for 5,000 yards and 48 touchdowns. That's not who the Bills are right now. It's not. If they need to do that, I'm sure they can, but that's not who they are. Right. So we need to have modest expectations of offensive production for Josh, the receivers, and then the trickle down from there. Right. One thing I wanted to ask you about, I just now thought about this when I mentioned Dawson Knox. So who's more important to the Buffalo Bills, Dawson Knox or James Cook?
James Cook is the more important piece to the Buffalo Bills offensive puzzle right now. Absolutely.
Okay. So the Bills paid Dawson Knox, right? And then they drafted Dalton. They drafted over him, and they drafted Dalton Kincaid. Now, I know a lot of people in the Bills front office love Dawson Knox. I love Dawson Knox. I think what he brings to the Bills, I don't know how you could put a monetization value on that. What he is for this team in the locker room, what he is for Josh, number one. Him and Josh have just, their relationship is you could see it carries into the field. And then you get modest production from him. I think he's caught 22 passes the last 2 years. So nothing crazy, but he's making a lot of money. He's a good blocker, but he's making a lot of money. Should the Bills think about either restructuring him to get a lower annual salary? Because I do think he's a guy that's going to retire a Buffalo Bill. I don't think the Bills, I think they just love who he is and what he means to the franchise. But isn't it funny how not a lot of fans are complaining? I've seen some, but not a lot are complaining about how much Dawson Knox is making this year, but they're upset that James Cook wants $15 million per year. And James Cook outproduced 90% of the running backs in the NFL last year as far as touchdowns, yards from scrimmage and all that.
Yeah.
I just thought that was a weird thing. Now, I know we pay offensive linemen more, and obviously, there's no stat for their production, obviously.
Correct.
But I don't know. I just thought that was intriguing that we're paying Dawson Knox a bunch of money to catch 22 passes, be Josh Allen's best friend, a cool guy in the locker room, but we can't give 𝐬𝐮𝐬𝐫𝐿 what he's asking for because he's a running back and we can just recycle that position. Now, I'm not saying we give him $15 million. I'm just looking at it from the Bills' perspective. Brandon Beane paid Dawson Knox, but now he's being stingy with 𝐬𝐮𝐬𝐫𝐿, who might be the second best offensive player on the Bills behind Josh Allen. That's all. I'll leave it at that. You guys do with it what you guys do with that what you want. Whatever. If that made any sense at all.
Yeah, man, it makes sense. It makes perfect sense. Just to take it a step further, Dawson Knox contract might be another reason why 𝐬𝐮𝐬𝐫𝐿 is not getting the money he's getting. So I know he's that dead cap this year. I think is 21 mil. Dead cap this year. Next year in 2026, I believe is around $7 million. So it's not ideal to have that $7 million dead cap, but Stephon Diggs, wasn't ideal neither when we got rid of him. So we'll see what happens 2026 season with Dawson Knox, and we'll see how he performs this year in 2025. We hope for the best.
All right, Akeem, we talked for 2 hours.
Yep.
I know it's been a couple years, but we talked for 2 hours. I don't know about you, but I'm losing my voice and I have to go use the bathroom. So I don't know about you. How you feeling? Anything else you want to bring up, talk about, discuss?
Nah.
Save some more for next week. Hey, we'll have training camp to talk about next week.
Yeah,
So-
that should be exciting. That should be exciting. Us getting into training camp. This first show was a good show. We had to get our feet wet. We had to get back accustomed to being on and speaking to the masses once again. And there was a lot to talk about. We didn't talk in a long time, so we took a long time today, but I think it was well worth it. It was a great first show, and it's only going to get better from here.
I think so too. So if you're watching this live, please smash the like button. If you've made it this far watching the rewatch, awesome. Thank you so much. Smash the like button. If you've made it this far and you'd like to drop a comment about anything we talked about, the Bills offense this year, wide receivers, 𝐬𝐮𝐬𝐫𝐿, Dalton Kincaid, Greg Rousseau, please drop us comments. If you guys are still in the chat after we end the stream, you guys keep going in the chat. We appreciate it. That helps us in the YouTube algorithm. We like to be in the algorithm. So with that being said, Akeem, we'll see you guys all next week right here, 9 o'clock, Billsology on the Built in Buffalo Podcast Network. Akeem, take us out, man.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, appreciate for everybody tuning in to myself, 𝐸𝐻, the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. DM3, Dave Myers. Billsology on same time next week, 9 p.m. We look forward to seeing you there. Until next time.
Go Bills.
Go Bills.